Good evening to all the guests. I'm Hyewon Kwon, Director of Korean Commercial Arbitration Board International, KCAB International. It is my great honor to welcome you to the webinar titled Squid Game in Real: What to Know About Dispute and Dispute Resolution in the Entertainment Industry. First of all, I'm so happy to be with you under the name of the 19th East Mood. Before COVID-19, this KCAB used to come to Hong Kong for holding webinars, and some of our councils contributed as an arbitrator for the great success of Bismuth. After COVID-19, I truly anticipate and hope to come to Hong Kong to see my old and new friends once again with a good shape. It's quite tough and complicated for our arbitrating institution to host a webinar with very meaningful and informative, also together with a fun and interesting theme. But however, for recent years, KCAB may have the perfect theme: entertainment and its dispute resolution. Wow, entertainment, it sounds hot and sexy, right? But however, if it is related to dispute, it is still hot and sexy? Well, let's think about it today. Let's think about it today and figure out how it could be still remaining as a hot and sexy. Then today, I would like to introduce our co-moderator, Ms. In-hwa Kwon and Mr. Haral Zipa. Ms. In-hwa is a senior counsel of KSOA, Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering, Hyundai Heavy Industry Group. Mr. Haral Zipa, Harold is my friend and the founder and principal of Zippel.Liga. So, In-hwa and Harold, floor is yours. But however, I could say, stay tuned, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Hyewon, for the kind introduction, and KCAB International for hosting this event. Harald and I, we have been particularly thrilled to organize and moderate today's webinar, which is aimed at delivering how to play the game in the entertainment industry and disputes therefrom. We would like to give a short tour to our Squid Game themed webinar. Not only it is a representative of one of the recent showcase of Korean entertainment with global reach, it is a module we adopted for our webinar today. As you can see, we have 5, so to say, game rounds, whereby Harald and I would pose a challenge to our panelists. So it would be a question to the panelists on each round, and our panelists would gather their thoughts and strategies on how to tackle it, make a game plan, so to say. Warning from KCAB is kindly providing and changing the slides on the background to show the round changes. Also, as you can see, Harald and I have the pink soldier's color for ours, and our distinguished panelists, our game participants of today, would have the color green from the Squid Game. In this regard, unless you are connecting from a small screen or mobile, we would suggest that you see us in the gallery view to appreciate our color theme throughout the session. I would ask Harald to jump on now.
Thank you, In-hwa. Thank you, Hyewon, also for the kind words introducing us. So this is the entertainment industry, right? And Hyewon said it should be sexy and fun. I'm not going to focus so much on the sexy part, but focus more on the fun part. This is the entertainment industry, and we hope that you out there will not only be greatly entertained by this event, but of course also have great takeaways on the entertainment industry. But as I said, it is an event on entertainment disputes and entertainment in general. So we want this to be fun. So in addition to what Hyewon said about In-hwa, here is a fun fact about her. As a teenager, she practiced the martial art wushu, and she kicked boys' butts for fun. With that, In-hwa, back to you.
Thank you, Harald. As much as Harald now looks serious and all lawyerly now, as a teenager, he was a singer of a band called Freeways and had dreadlocks. I'm gonna move on with the fun fact of Changcha, who's gonna appear and show himself shortly. Changcha lives in the same apartment with this Korean singer and rapper, Jesse. And also, extra fun fact, his wife has a big crush on Jay Park, both of whom are very relevant to our session today, fortunately. So you'll hear about it shortly as well. Back to you, Harald.
Thank you, Inwa. The fun fact about Matt, our next participant today, who's Matt, well, that's not a fun fact, that's a real fact. He's a partner at White & Case and the head of the international arbitration practice for Asia Pacific. But his fun fact, still related to the entertainment industry, Matt was once caught in a minor stampede at Changi Airport, the airport in Singapore, when the boy band Astro arrived at the same time as him. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks.
So I go on with our last speaker. So we have, last but not least, panelist, Mr. Ho Son, who is a general counsel and vice president of Higher Music Record, and he's about to join us. I'm waiting on the screen, but I can shoot out his fun fact already. Well, it was clear from an early age that he would enter the entertainment business, as he started smoking at his age 12 and clubbing at 14. If it's true or not. Let's not dawdle any longer and start the game. So we would now enter to our round number 1. And I would like to pose this question to our game participants. As a general question, what are the relevant legal issues in the entertainment industry, and what subject matters should a lawyer working in the entertainment industry who would like to inquire clients from the industry should be able to deal with? I would be posing this to Changcha first.
Sure. Thank you, Yinhua. And hello, everybody. My name is Changcha Lee. I work at Kim and Chang. Just to answer your question, I think the Korean entertainment industry has been going through a dramatic change the last few years. Traditionally, the Korean entertainment industry was, generally just making movies, dramas, music, and distribute and made profits through distributions, mostly domestically. However, that trend has been, changing recently, and there's been several factors, I would say. First of all, there are different types of content that's been popping up recently. For example, in Korean, Webtoons are huge, and also the growth of online video servers, for example, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and as well as OTT platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney. The market has been reset, which means, and also that whereas traditionally the Korean entertainment industry was really, heavily domestic, now it's been expanding overseas. And also, we're also seeing the expansion of online platforms and the emergence of new technologies, for example, NFTs, metaverse, and all that. So the business scope of the entertainment agencies and companies, as well as the entertainers themselves, and content related to them, have really expanded. And as everybody knows, and as the theme of this webinar is Squid Game, the K-pop, K-dramas, and K-movies the popularity has really been, expanded beyond the scope of Korea, and that also expanded the activities of Korean celebrities, which means that also brought about different types of legal issues. So that not only touches on copyrights, but also different types of issues and disputes. And that's and we're dealing with new types of IP and contents as well. So that's kind of like a very high level general overview that I've been seeing in terms of legal issues in the entertainment industry in Korea.
Thanks a lot, Changchul. That's really great start to enter the subject of this webinar, this Korean perspective. But I want to, moving over to Matt now, I'd like to emphasize on something you said towards the end, Changchul. You pointed out that as the Korean entertainment industry has really grown and is now not focused on Korea anymore, but really moving out to the world. Matt, let me ask you this. When we take a step back, so to say, and look at those issues on a more global perspective, in your practice and generally, what do you see, especially when we think about risks, maybe?
I mean, that's a good question. I think, entertainment is a commodity. I mean, it's a commodity just as real as gold or coal or steel or something else. And business wants to make money through commodities. And, in a sense with Korea, they've kind of struck gold because it's just been a body of entertainment and a kind of a contiguous environment with, with singers, with TV shows, with movies, and all of the things that go along with it that can be commoditized. And, just like any commodity, the value of the commodity is based upon the basics, which is supply and demand. And, in Korea, you just have this massive demand for, Korean soap operas and things like that. And you can see this in the different ways entertainment can be commoditized, because, for example, you have very modern versions like Junjul was referring to, like using, product placements and kind of interweaving entertainment with products like NFTs. But then you have old school things as well. Like if you take old bands like the Rolling Stones, they make an absolute fortune because their commodity is rare, because everybody thinks they're about to kick the bucket. So every tour people think is their last, and people will pay a fortune to get the commodity. Now, but from a legal perspective, if you treat entertainment as a commodity, what that tells you is that it's commercialized just like other things. It's commercialized through fundamental business tools, agency, joint ventures, and all of these kind of classic things that commoditize and commercialize all kinds of things. That's exactly what you see in the entertainment business. It just happens to be that the product is a boy band, or the product is a film, rather than it being something else. So just like other commodities, you need to finance it. So you need the involvement of banks, you need the involvement of insurance. And in entertainment, for example, what we certainly see a lot is private equity. Private equity in Hollywood and throughout the world, instead of investing in factories or something else, they're investing in movies. For example, there's a huge amount of private equity going into films all around the world. In India, for example, you have a huge amount of private equity going into Bollywood films. So I think the takeaway is that although it's sexy and hard, it is, at the end of the day, a massive way to make money.
That's very interesting, Matt. Thank you. I'm going to look at Ho now. Do you agree with Matt's description of entertainment being commodities as well? I suppose you will. And what's your experience as in-house to one of the most popular hip-hop label in Korea?
Yes, commodity. Yes, people make money off the artists, music, video, content. It's true that entertainment is just run for money as commodity. Fully agree. But within working inside and the music label myself. Money's not everything. There are other issues. You know, they're all people. Artists are human, just like us. And there are issues that I need to handle, deal with. And entertainment companies is so much like, you know, all the other companies out there. You have to think about shareholders, investment, M&As, starting a new business, tax issues. I mean, it's pretty much all this, you know, same as all the other companies that are run in other industry as well. Nothing sexy. So
You're particularly dealing with the music industry yourself. Do you see any issues that are different from other type of industry work or general commercial works by any
I mean,
chance?
everything is creative. It's not like a phone or computers. It's contents based, music, video, anything that is related to the music that are pretty much contents. And we don't buy CDs anymore. We purchase through platforms, music. So it's changing, growing fast. So you need to adapt to the new business forms in the industry. And what was the question again? Forget it.
I want to have another question posed to you now, just following up on that. You'll be the go-to person for all these artists that we mentioned before, Jay Park and Jesse and everyone else within the label or outside. What would be your challenge representing all these artists as in-house work, like problem
I mean,
solver
I
for all
work
of them?
both in-house and outside because I'm in-house for the music label, and there are 14 artists that I need to work with, and outside as well as an attorney. There are other issues than, you know, just music or entertainment related. Like I said, they're you know, one of us. They have issues with hacks. They have issues with real estate. They have issues with you know, just everyday lives. So there are issues out there that are happening, you know, to them, just like us. And once you are close to them, once you work with them, once you get to know them better, you just got to handle all sorts of issues other than entertainment. And it's fun at times, and it gets difficult too.
I'll take over from here, Ho. Thanks a lot for highlighting that perspective that at the end of the day, you are dealing with humans. And I very much like the point you made that as humans, the issues you see are maybe at the end of the day not so very different from what we would see with other people and possibly other companies. Still, if I may, I'd like to sort of identify with you and of course the other speakers a few commonalities. And I'd like to identify where the entertainment industry stands out, if we want to say so. What is special about it? Now, something that comes to my mind as a layman, of course, you guys are the experts, not me, is the internationality. I'm thinking about Squid Games, with us having the backgrounds here. And this was really watched all around the world. It's originally from Korea, but it was truly international. I'm thinking of Gangnam Style, which was, if I recall, the first video to reach 1 billion clicks on YouTube. And this would not be possible if it were simply something that, you know, remains of one single country. So it's truly international. But again, this is my view, and we're now entering round 2. And my question to the three of you, the experts here with us today, is it true that the entertainment industry is more international than maybe other industries? And is there anything else that makes the entertainment industry stand out? And we stay with you, Ho. Maybe you could explain, with respect to internationality, what's going on at higher music artists going global in particular.
Wow. Entertainment, I don't think there's any barrier internationally. That's where, I mean, music is a sound. Music is visual too. And it's the same language when it comes to music. You know, everybody listens to. I mean, we may not understand what the singers or rappers are saying or singing, but you know, we're listening, we're hearing, and we see, visualize too. And that's where the barrier is lower, the walls are thinner. And I mean, with all the platforms out there, whether it's YouTube or Netflix, TikTok, Instagram, I mean, we're all connected internationally. I mean, we put out a music today and people are hearing it, you know, 2 a.m. in different area, different time zone. And I think it's, you know, with the help of all the technology out there, I don't see any barrier. It's very, how to say this? I mean, I think we're living in like a one universe. So.
Before handing over to Inwa, I think something Inwa, you and I missed at the introduction was to make it clear that we only have 3 participants and we have 5 rounds. So if anyone is getting shot, Mark, thanks a lot for pointing that out. If anyone were getting shot or removed otherwise, we'd run out of speakers. So sorry, no one is getting shot today. But I take this opportunity to encourage you guys out there, everyone in the audience, to ask questions or make comments. Yes, it's not a shame. We all like our speakers here, so we don't want to shoot anyone. But please feel free to shoot any questions at us in the Q&A form, and to the extent we can, we'll answer them live. We've also reserved some time towards the end to answer any questions that we have not answered. So with that, back to you, Inwa.
Thank you, Harald, for picking up the question in the Q&A session. I was missing it. And thank you, Mark, for the excellent question. I would also quickly apologize for my poor quality of display. I've tried to work on it a bit in advance, but I'm hoping that as the sun goes down here, it will get better. So apologies. I'm gonna ask the same question to Changchul now. So Changchul was speaking earlier in the beginning that our entertainment work, especially Korean entertainment products, are becoming more internationally accepted and receiving more attention from the globe in general. We have mentioned Squid Game earlier and Gangnam Style, Harald mentioned. We have seen that our film Parasite winning Oscars for the first time, Oscar Best Pictures for the first time as a non-English film in 2020. We cannot skip BTS and Faker in the areas of esports. I'm wondering, as the products or the commodities, if we can take Matt's reference, going international by day, what are the works related to it? How is entertainment work becoming more international for lawyers? Or do you see any particular aspect of it standing out from the entertainment industry?
Right. Before I answer that question, I want to say that please don't shoot us, because if you'll see the numbers, I'm the only one who actually does not survive at the end of the day in Squid Game. So I don't want to be the only one dead.
I'm so sorry. I'm the one who signed the numbers to the speaker. So
But in any event, to answer your question, yes, I think I totally agree with you know, both Ho and Matt. Especially what Ho said really is true. I think the rise of globalization, especially with the Korean entertainment industry, really coincides with the development in technology. Um, and in the past, entertainment, with a very few exceptions, used to be a very local industry, especially in Korea. You know, once you know, I don't know how old our audience is, but once you got out of Korea, there were only a select few avenues where you could access Korean, you know, entertainment. You know, you could go to like some shops that sold like bootleg VHS tapes, or you know, lent them. You could buy bootleg CDs, but that's pretty much it. I mean, there were really limited ways where you could access Korean entertainment. But now with the rise of technology, for example, as we had talked about, like YouTube, Netflix, and all that, you know, there are so many ways where you can access Korean entertainment. And it's just, to be quite honest, it's not just Korean entertainment, any type of entertainment around the world where you could have access to. I think, as Ho mentioned, you know, music, it resonates with different people. You know, dramas, certain storylines. Um, you know, like for example, Squid Games, the struggle between the rich and the poor, you know, things of that nature. It's not just a Korean thing. It really resonates with different societies. And once, you know, having that access through technology, I think has really been a catalyst to like the Korean entertainment industry becoming more global. And I don't really see that stopping as the technology. There are new platforms and new forms of technology that are emerging. Again, you know, for example, we talked about NFTs. You know, there will be NFT. You know, Hybe already announced that they're going to make NFTs out of you know, BTS members, for example. You know, things of that nature. And you know, they you know, as there are more developments, you know, it's just going to become more global, international. And I think the key aspect is technological developments, as well as, you know, having access around the world. So, you know, that's my thought. You know, you know, in terms of the Korean entertainment becoming more international, and you know, with that, there will be more legal issues as well. Not only, you know, enabling that, but also any type of, you know, conflicts or disputes that may arise from it. Because again, when the entertainment industry was strictly domestic, you know, we were just talking about claims within Korea, but now, you know, that exposure is, you know, also expanding into other countries as well. So that's something that as practitioners we have to take a look, you know, have to be mindful of.
That's a great point, Chol. I'm picking up on your observation now that the rise of the Korean entertainment industry goes hand in hand with the greater use and proliferation of technology. And that's, you made it very easy for me now to hand over to Matt. Matt, you are Australian. You know, if it were only about fun, I would have said from New Zealand, but I'll not do that. You live in Singapore. Your wife is German, if I understand correctly, and previously you spent, I think, about 15 years or so in Paris. So arguably, you know, having discussed what we are discussing now, arguably you should quit White & Case and move in-house to work in the entertainment industry. But no, on a more serious note, what is your views on the internationality aspect, and what takeaways do we have specifically for the entertainment industry here?
Thanks, Harold. It's always good to hear a nice question from a German like you. Um, no, I mean, I agree, and I think I'd like to pick up on something that Ho said. I think from an economic perspective, what we're seeing is entertainment merging as a global market rather than being a series of regional markets. Now, Hollywood was always an exception. Hollywood would always send its movies around the world. But 50 years ago, it was very regionalized. You had French cinema, and that was basically for French people, and German cinema for Germans, and so on and so forth. Whereas by contrast now, with technology and other things, I think people are voting with their feet because they can so easily. And if it's good quality entertainment, whether it be music, whether it be art, whether it be movies or TV, if it's good universally. And so you see these explosions of things because they're good. So, I mean, to look outside Korea, you see things like this explosion of these kind of Scandinavian kind of dark dramas, basically murder mysteries, which are super popular. And I think just because they do it very well, they're very atmospheric. And so people who like that type of thing love it. And, as I say, and you see this with kind of, with Indian cinema, kind of going around the world, music from different parts of the world, and things like that. So I think that's really what you're seeing. And from a legal perspective, that comes with the challenges, because suddenly you're not just, kind of marketing a product in a defined geography, which you kind of have some knowledge of. It just floats all around the world. And I think with that, you have this kind of, what do you call this, symbiosis with other things. So things which are not strictly entertainment, but, as they're very consistent with them. So for example, you see celebrity product placement, which you always had going back to the 80s, but now it's kind of on speed. So you have the BTS McDonald's hookup, for example, which was hugely popular. You get things like cryptocurrencies, which are associated with celebrities. Again, cryptocurrency is not an entertainment, it's a financial product, but you've got the legal ramifications of that type of thing. And obviously, things like celebrity alcohol, people have gins and soju apparently in Korea that are associated with that. And again, these things are flowing over borders. One final comment, just to pick up on something that was said before. I think that what's interesting about entertainment and it's the way it's commercialized today is how fickle and how fast moving it is. Because in the old days, you had to have distribution channels for films, for example, where you literally physically took the film to cinema, or for CDs, etc. Now, things can change, in a heartbeat. An artist that wasn't popular yesterday can be popular tomorrow. A film that was made for, very cheaply can be distributed worldwide, in an instant. And a lot of the disputes, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think is partially driven by that speed. So just to give you an example before I pass back, a good example was the Black Widow case with Scarlett Johansson, because she basically signed a contract in 2017 to do Black Widow. And the contract said that it would be a theatrical release. But then the film was released until 2021, partially delayed by COVID. And by that stage, the whole nature of streaming had changed between 2017 and 2021. And Disney wanted to release simultaneously on Disney Plus and theatrically, and she didn't like that. But I think that's an example of a dispute driven by the pace of change that you see in the entertainment industry. So.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'm going to stay with you, Matt, on the first question of round 3. Now we are entering round 3. Picking up on your comment about entertainment industry, business moving forward very fast, with also hand in hand with the technology's development. This example of Scarlett Johansson's contract is very interesting. And I would like to hear more about what type of disputes that are arising globally as our entertainment products, not only marketing regionally, but globally as well. What are the types of dispute that you have seen in the entertainment or beyond entertainment industry work, and what are the specific topics, if you could share with us?
Sure. Preparing for this and trying to avoid being shot, I did think about this, and it's very difficult because there's so many forms of entertainment,
Sure.
and they're commercialized differently. And you know, and they say the model is changing. But if you really break it down, I think if you want to classify it, I think there's different ways you can do it. I think that one of the classic types of entertainment disputes is simply protecting intellectual property, because you know intellectual property and entertainment can't be separated. They are the same thing. So you do have a lot of copyright cases, passing off cases, etc. And as we'll get to later, probably not such an arbitration thing, to be honest. But for real entertainment lawyers, that's a big part of their practice, protecting copyright. And this is nothing new. So the classic example is, say, ripping off songs. So, you know, you have these cases all the time where people take, you know, certain lines from a song and, you know, they appropriate it, and there's a discussion about whether it was simply a stylistic similarity or whether they actually stepped over the line. That's one class. I think the second class are licensing disputes, because obviously, you know, licensing and selling of the intellectual property is a huge area in itself, much more likely to be subject to arbitration. And as I say, that those have their own beauty. And then the final class, and there are other ways to look at it, but then there's what I would call just commercial disputes. And as I started off with the commoditization or the commodity of entertainment, there's just a lot of disputes in that commercial space. Like, so joint venture disputes between producers is a classic. You know, there's funding disputes, there's insurance disputes about completion for movies, a classic thing that you see. And these can manifest themselves in just a wild variety of ways, because normally these disputes, I would say, are relatively unique in the sense that they're, you know, there's no pattern as you'd sometimes see. It's just a commercial dispute where people get greedy, or they had a different understanding of the commercial deal. And you do see a lot of those disputes. So, for example, I was a sole arbitrator in a dispute between two film producers who were fighting about the proceeds of a film that had been made 20 years earlier. But the thing is, it had been a bomb. It hadn't worked out, but there was still a residual income 20 years later. And there was an allegation that one was hiding a small stream of income from another one. And the funny thing about this was, of course, I was doing the case as arbitrator, and I asked the parties, could I see the film? Not because that had anything to do with it, just because I was curious. And it was an action film set in Israel, with some kind of 80s stars who were kind of aging at the time. And I tell you what, I could see why it bombed. It was terrible. But as I say, that's the type of dispute that you do see. And that was just basically a joint venture dispute, because it was just two producers who put the money in together to make the film.
Matt, maybe that movie should have had an Austrian superstar like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just for the record, to clarify that I'm Austrian and not German. But it was a nice retaliation. Now, Tongtal, you are with KNC, with Kim and Chang, which is by far the largest Korean law firm. So I imagine that on average, the matters you are dealing with are, you know, according in size, they are usually large matters. But when we spoke before this event, you also highlighted something that I found quite intriguing, and which I admit was new to me, which was the IP infringement in Webtoons. And you highlighted that these infringements occur very, very often on a daily basis, but they're not really dealt with. Could you, for everyone's benefit here, since you really have expertise here, could you shed some light on this at a high level and explain what this is about, please?
Sure. I mean, you know, in a very simple term, I mean, I'm sure everybody, most people know what webtoons are, but just so everybody, we're on the same page. Webtoons are talking about comics that are on the web. So it's a combination of web plus, tune. So it's like, you have anime or you have Japanese anime, which is, actually live animation. Webtoons are more like closer to comic books, but instead of a hard copy bound like hard copy of a comic, it's published online, most typically on a weekly basis. Um, so there are, and Webtoon has become very, very popular in Korea, and I'm sure, and as well as U.S. and Japan and other jurisdictions. And it falls under, I actually really agree with Matt's categorization of the disputes, but it's when you boil down to it, it's a typical copyright case a lot of times, plagiarism, and things, or licenses, like, for example, do you have the proper license to publish or distribute the webtoons in certain jurisdictions or platforms, etc. And webtoons are gaining more importance within the Korean entertainment industry because a lot of K dramas or movies are increasingly becoming more based on webtoons. One of the more prominent recent examples being the Korean zombie drama called Alive, which I'm told that it was a very popular movie on Netflix as well. To be quite honest, I'm not a huge fan of zombie movies, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm told it was a huge hit, and it was based on webtoons. And also another one is Hellbound, which was a a drama, K drama on Netflix. So that was also based on webtoons. So it's becoming more, there's a lot of more licensing or cross-platform distributions, creations of copyright based on webtoons. So it's becoming more prominent, and disputes are arising from them. Now, I do also want to point out that I agree with Matt that the disputes can be categorized in, broadly in copyright infringement, licenses, and commercial disputes. But I also want to point out that with the rise of different platforms and technologies, there are different types of disputes that you might not have seen before. Like, for example, in the past, the cross-border disputes that we would see in Korea, basically it was like plagiarism. Like, somebody will claim that Korean content plagiarized their copyright somewhere else. Now it's becoming more, maybe this is not the right term, but more nuanced, or more, it's becoming more technical in the sense that, for example, geo-blocking or dubbing in certain languages. Companies are licensing, giving out licenses to different jurisdictions for different countries. So, for example, they would, I'm sorry, they would license the English version of certain dubs to a certain company, but they would, license different languages to another company. But when you have a platform like Netflix, people have access to all kinds of different versions. So we see, for example, disputes where somebody has rights to an English version of the dubbing, suing a certain platform because audiences in other jurisdictions can still watch the same content with the English subtitles, for example. So things of that nature we're seeing, or certain music should have been geo-blocked, so it should have been only accessible to Korean audiences, but it was not properly geo-blocked, so that it's actually accessible to people outside of Korea. So that's also kind of like a license dispute, or copyright dispute. But at the same time, it's becoming, it would be something that you would not have seen before, but we're seeing more increasingly because of this rise of like international platforms where anybody can pretty much access anything from around the world. And we're, while we haven't seen many yet, we also expect a lot of issues, for example, with NFT probably. For example, like if somebody were to, mint an NFT in the image of, I don't know, like a character in somebody's movie, but they never got a proper license for it. But when does the actual infringement arise? Is it when the NFT is actually minted? Is it when they actually transfer it? Does it have to be for money, for example? Things of that nature. It's still very unclear under law where these things would happen. And I think those types of claims, I think we will probably see more increasingly going forward.
As much as it is welcoming news for Harald and myself, dispute lawyers, and many in the audience, so we have heard that disputes are arising and growing, expanding globally. I have a feeling from this inside person in the entertainment industry Ho would say something else based on our previous conversation. What has been your experience with disputes? I think you're muted, sorry. Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay. The business that I deal with is probably smaller than what Jungcho is mentioning or Matt is mentioning. I think my work inside and like being inside the company, I care more about dispute prevention than going to the dispute. And it's like from my experience working within, never went to court, never went to arbitrate. A lot of contract that I've reviewed, I have not even seen arbitration clause or even dispute resolution clause in the contract. And prevention, I think is more important for the entertainment, or at least for the artists, because they're public figures at the same time, and they are being attacked for going to the court or having a dispute for things that are not even so big, or it's not something that they did wrong. I mean, you see people or the entertainers going to investigated, going to court for their drugs issue, or things that are done bad. But like working in house, like I rather not fight. I'd rather resolve everything amicably. And I mean, I experience disputes, but everything has been pretty much resolved without making any noise. So
Is it possible
like
that
I
you
said,
share
but my
with
business
us?
is pretty small comparison to what Matt and Jungsu is mentioning about. So
But your label is growing fast and globally understood. Do you mind sharing us with some of the potential areas of dispute that you have observed that didn't come to the dispute stage thanks to your excellent advice? Still?
I mean, once again, it's pretty small, but when working with artists overseas, we put down all the terms in the contract. You have to post a feed on Instagram. You have to show up at the music video, a shooting, and they're paid to post. And you get to see artists that are not just abiding the terms of the contract. I mean, there's not much you could do, a lot of things are being untreated and just let go at times. And I mean, there's stuff that there are times I had to go to court for stalker one time for the talent, and I try to minimize publicity or not get let out, but it got leaked on the Judgment Day, and it was put out in internet news one time. And I got calls from my artists, and this shouldn't go out to the public. And I said it was my fault, but it was not. But but it's my fault.
That's really insightful, how you highlight your experience and also how it's different. However, and moving on to round 4, and everyone has survived. And just for the record, once again, no one is going to get shot, and this is not the Oscars, so no one is going to get slapped either, just to make it clear. But Ho, I have the feeling that as much as I appreciate you are telling us a lot, you are not sharing the whole truth. And I want to push you here. How do you manage to constantly avoid those disputes? I mean, you said letting go, and I appreciate that, especially when things are not super formal, there's often no point in pursuing every tiny thing, especially having publicity in mind. But still, I'm sure not just I, but everyone here would be very interested in your secrets. How do you avoid disputes? And what should we do differently to avoid those disputes?
I think spending time with artists and making the fully informed decision is the key first. And when working with the third parties, there are we have to spend time, longer time than negotiating terms. You have to be extra careful about little things, and it just takes a little bit more time and care than working with or for corporates. They're, like I said previously, they're people, and they're disputes prevention. I think that's the key, instead of going to a dispute resolution process.
So as a lawyer in the entertainment industry, if I understand you correctly, you would have to be maybe more empathetic than in other industries if you want to avoid disputes. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Do you agree to this?
I'm very careful to say things.
I'd like to hear from Matt if he agrees to what Ho just said, that you have to spend more time with your client and artists to be a better lawyer in the dispute prevention. Just out of curiosity, and what would you recommend that we do differently in dealing with entertainment disputes, if there's anything that it should be treated differently to adopt a new way in resolving disputes or doing dispute prevention work? What are your thoughts?
I agree with Ho. I fear he's trying to put us out of business as lawyers, as disputes lawyers. No, I think he's right. I mean, entertainment is deeply personal because all of the creation is done by people. Maybe AI will come up in a few years, I don't know. But at the moment, you rely upon human creativity. So it is a fundamentally human thing, and humans come with them all of the kind of psychological baggage that evolution gave us in terms of insecurity, in terms of paranoia, and all of those things that can be dark, but also the ability to, to build relationships, to love, and those things that can be very positive too. So I agree entirely with Ho's general premise, which is that the more time you spend building the relationship, the less likely it is you'll end up in a dispute. That said, it's also all about the Benjamins in the sense that it's an industry. And where disputes become intractable, they basically come up in two circumstances. One we'll call the Will Smith, where there's basically a personal issue and that the relationship has soured, and it's actually a personal thing, which we definitely have seen. So therefore, it's kind of the flip side to what Ho was describing, where the relationship is a thing. The other thing which you see more frequently is simply that something has gone wrong, which sometimes can be independent of the relationship. So for example, the technologies has changed, the market has changed, or something else. And basically there's a cost, and it's either a pot of gold that the parties don't want to share, or there's a huge cost, like a movie has bombed. And it's just a big amount of money, and somebody has to either get the money or lose the money. And that's where the tension that leads to a formal dispute is, that you just can't brush over with the dispute because it's just too much money. So a classic, I'll give you an example. We were working on for a private equity client who was investing in, this is a bit different, it's gaming, online gaming, which is a form of entertainment. And they were investing in a Southeast Asian country. And it was a classic post M&A dispute, where there were kind of allegations that the warranties that had been given in the acquisition documents weren't true, but it was a lot of money. You know what I mean? It wasn't something you could just say, oh, well, it's okay, because, even though they were still in a joint venture, there was the asset was worth a lot less than it should have been. And hence that led to a formal dispute.
That leads me over to Changchul. Hearing what Ho said and what Matt pointed out, are you worried about going out of business, or is this exaggerated? And generally, of course, and again, on a more serious note, what's your advice when it comes to avoiding disputes, particularly in the entertainment industry? And maybe I could also ask it this way: should we show more creativity here, like the industry itself?
Sure. To answer the first part, I'm pretty sure lawyers would find a way never to go out of business. So I'm pretty confident of that. We could always sell ways to prevent, disputes. But anyway, with that said, I really agree with everything that Ho and Matt said. In a way, both have very good points. And while I agree that a lot of times it's about the Benjamins, as Matt said, I also tend to really agree with Ho that this is a people business and people have feelings. And sometimes it's about egos, obviously, when we're talking about entertainers and stars. And sometimes it's not, you really have to understand, I think, when it comes to disputes, what exactly is at stake, or what they really want at the end of the day. I think, while not strictly a dispute, but the example just came to mind the other day that SM Entertainment, one of the biggest entertainment companies in Korea, the founder, Isuman, is trying to sell his stake to Kakao Entertainment, but the negotiations hit a snag because, not because of the money. The money, I don't think I think they've already agreed on the amount. The negotiations hit a snag because Isuman wants to continue control of the management operations after he sells his stake. So again, it's a lot of times it is about the Benjamin, yes. At the same time, when we're dealing with humans, it can be personal, and I think having a better understanding, and as Ho said, being empathetic, having empathy for these people, and having a relationship and better understanding, I think that's really important especially when we're dealing with the entertainment industries and the different egos and the relationships among different people.
You're making a really good point here, Changchul, the relationship among people. And this is a very good connector to a question we got from the audience. Someone asked, there is no name, so I cannot mention anything, but someone asked if mediation would be a better way to resolve those disputes rather than litigation or arbitration? I'm asking anyone here, any three of you, would anyone like to take that question?
Well, if I may, I'll take a first
Sure.
stab. You know, this is my personal opinion, but I do actually like mitigation, even though this is being, you know, sponsored by the KCAB. You know, I do like mitigation in the sense that, you know, before we actually launch a formal dispute resolution process, you know, having that more of a middle kind of like interim process where we can try to work out the differences, I think is, for me, I think is valuable because, you know, a lot of times maybe we can just filter out issues before it actually, you know, hits the fan, I guess. And you know, I think mitigation for me, I think is a very viable um, way of achieving that.
Just for the record, the KCAB is not merely offering arbitration services, but they also do mediation services. So you're not saying anything against them. Matt or Ho, anything you would like to add on this question and on what Changchul?
No, I mean, I agree entirely about, I mean, the use of mediation, because I think it fulfills the two things that we've kind of identified as important to the entertainment industry. One is that you can maintain your relationship perhaps better. And second, which Ho referred to before, is that nobody wants to wash their dirty laundry in front of everybody. So mediation obviously is quite confidential, perhaps easier kept confidential than other things. So I think that it makes sense to play an important role.
I think it relates to the next topic, I guess. Confidence. Confidence is the key as well for the artists, for the entertainers. So.
Right, I think it leaves us a good ground to jump to our last round. Game round number 5. Thank you all.
Sorry for spoiling it.
To our panelists for surviving so far in our game. And our question, the last question or challenge would be related to arbitration and dispute resolution, obviously. And we were just talking about the attractiveness of mediation, in particular to the entertainment disputes, or not. When we speak about arbitration, or how we could actually utilize arbitration for our entertainment client, I'm curious, I'm going to ask this to Matt. When would you recommend arbitration to your clients, and when not, and what would be the general consideration that you give that are attractive in considering arbitration, let's say, versus mediation here?
I mean, I think, well, the first thing is I don't think that mediation and arbitration are substitutes.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you really can't solve a dispute, then you need some fallback. So it's either going to be the national courts or arbitration. So I think that the combination of mediation and then arbitration is the best middle ground in most cases. But let's say for entertainment disputes, I think arbitration, or international arbitration in entertainment disputes, I think arbitration is a natural choice. Obviously, it's what I do, but I think that the statistics, like the Queen Mary White and Case survey, that's a plug, show very clearly that, in fact, the reasons that distinguish litigation from arbitration are compelling, but few. And I really think there's only two key differences, which are basically the ability to keep everything confidential. In national courts, very, very difficult to keep it out of dirty, grubby journalists' hands, as Ho was talking to before. And so confidentiality is a huge difference. And if you really have beefed up confidentiality provisions in your contract, plus you have a tribunal who will enforce that confidentiality through kind of gag orders, then you can pretty much, you can do a good job of protecting confidentiality. The second thing which makes a huge difference is enforceability. So let's say it's a licensing dispute where either you want relief from the license or you want to specifically enforce a license and the ability to use the intellectual property worldwide. The advantage of arbitration, obviously, is the New York Convention, the fact that the award will be enforceable all around the world. And with the kind of transnational nature of the entertainment business, as we've been discussing, arbitration fills that role. State court litigation doesn't. So I think that it's all about confidentiality and enforceability. Other than that, I don't see as big a difference.
Matt, I think you really made a good point here with the combination of mediation and arbitration. And the same Queen Mary survey you mentioned, I think it's also very clear that this combination is actually one of the preferred choices of users. They don't only want to go to arbitration or only to litigation. They really like combining those two processes in whatever form. That said, Changchul, moving over to Korea, the entertainment industry has not really seen that many arbitration disputes. It seems that arbitration is not that popular when it comes to entertainment disputes in Korea. Now, what could we change? What should we change? And you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I saw that message. It pop up. So how should I phrase it? I think I want to differentiate between disputes involving, for example, entertainment or individuals, stars or celebrities or entertainers, and disputes between like companies, I guess, licensors, licensees, for example. When it comes to the first part, yes, I think there's hesitation in terms of using arbitration, or especially international arbitration, in the sense that enforceability, unfamiliarity, those are probably the issues, I think, when it comes to for example, if there are any disputes involving like a singer or celebrity or movie star. I think that's kind of like the thing. And they're more, in their mind, they feel like the more familiar path would be simple court litigation. So I think just kind of having that perception, I think changing that perception would be important. But at the same time, when we're talking about disputes between companies, we've actually seen many contracts that have arbitration clauses. I think especially when it comes to overseas licenses or cross-border licenses, commercial contracts, because I think companies are increasingly seeing more arbitration as a good for middle ground, so to speak, instead of having to choose between a court in our jurisdiction or their jurisdiction, so to speak. So I think we're seeing more arbitration clauses between again and contracts, commercial contracts. So that which is for even as lawyers, I think that's a good thing in the sense that we think that that's a good way of resolving disputes a lot of times.
I think we have heard what we could do more in arbitration industry to attract entertainment clients, but I recall Ho was emphasizing the confidentiality is very much appreciated by his clients, everyone in the entertainment industry in general, and this attractiveness of arbitration, mediation, all being confidential compared to court litigation has not been attractive enough yet, it seems. Would you perhaps share more insight into it? What are the concerns in general? What you have seen that pulled the client back? We're obviously asking this under this big vision that we would attract more clients to our business.
I still believe the words gets out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the artists or the companies are afraid to go, fight or have a and confidentiality or the dispute prevention, I think they are pretty much the same to me. And if there are ways to, take care of the conflict part, at least, we'll attract more to arbitrate than going to the court, definitely. But I'm still a believer of words getting out, so I still need to be educated, I guess, about how great of arbitration is compared to going to the court.
Noted. Thank you, Ho, for your candid answer here. I'm wary of our time running for 70 minutes now. Harald, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel once again that Ho is not being fully candid, keeping his secrets from us. But that's okay. But I think we're now at 5:11, so maybe that's a good time.
6:11 here.
Oh yeah, sorry, 6:11 to end Korean time. I'm here on Singapore time, just like Matt is. But maybe that's a good time to end now. I think everyone who is still around would agree with me that none of the speakers deserve to get shot or even less so slapped. So let me thank all of you very much for your great insights, and also for making this an entertaining event, as it should be, really, because we've seen too many webinars these days. So if it can be more fun, that's really great. So thank you very much from my side, and back to you, Inma, for the final.
Nothing to add anything significant, but I was just gonna joke a bit that if we were allowed with the time and could allow all our participants to show their video, we could perhaps vote at the end of the day how to close our event, just like in the Squid Game. That's a good one, Chiguro. Anyway, thank you also from me to everyone, our panelists, for speaking with us today, and for all our audience members out there joining us from everywhere. Thank you, KCAB International, for hosting this interesting event and allowing us to moderate. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. I would say that we close our webinar now then, unless there's any last words. I see none. So.
I mean, I was expecting more fun Q&As. I was ready to give out the phone numbers with the artists.
Okay.
Next time, Ho.
Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, one in the background.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, bye.